Welcome to the AI for Career Success video overview by Curt Robbins. We're experts at AI coaching and helping professionals like you and your employees upskill in AI.
This episode reviews an informative article from this show's producer, senior technical writer Curt Robbins, entitled Understanding NASA's Moon-Based Strategy, that was published on LinkedIn on March 24.
The article presents NASA at a critical inflection point. After decades of what the source calls bureaucratic inertia, the agency now has an aggressive new mandate to establish a permanent human presence on the Moon. So let's explore exactly how they plan to make that happen.
To really understand the new strategy, we first need to examine the problem it was designed to solve. The source material characterizes this as a prolonged period of stagnation, a dream state from which the agency is now being forced to awaken.
A major factor behind this inertia was, frankly, budgetary. As the source illustrates, NASA's budget of roughly $25 billion makes it, quote, a red-headed stepchild to the Pentagon, which operates with a budget closer to $1 trillion. This financial reality has limited the scope and the pace of its ambitions for decades.
So when you combine that budgetary constraint with a lack of clear long-term direction, you get a culture of inaction. The source calls this the dream state, a period that was really marked by atrophied employee skills and, frankly, billions of dollars wasted on poor planning and hardware that just didn't meet mission requirements.
This specific phrase from the article really captures the essence of the problem perfectly. Progress became secondary to process. The agency's focus shifted inward toward presentations and planning cycles rather than outward toward the tangible engineering and execution needed for deep space exploration.
So how do you break out of a dream state like that? Well, NASA's answer is a new philosophy called the ignition mandate. It's a radical rejection of the status quo, and it's designed to permanently shift the agency's operational priorities. The very first and most decisive action under this mandate is a direct assault on red tape. The new administrator, Jared Isaacman, has initiated what the source calls a scorched earth policy against regulatory friction, identifying over 370 specific sections of bureaucracy for immediate removal.
This statement from Administrator Isaacman really underscores the gravity of the situation. It signals a complete alignment between the agency, the executive branch, and public sentiment, creating a powerful impetus for change and a totally new standard of accountability.
The agency is also overhauling its entire relationship with its commercial partners. Instead of just acting as a passive overseer, NASA is now embedding its own experts directly inside vendor facilities. This is meant to allow for real-time problem-solving and to ensure schedules are met, with the agency threatening uncomfortable action for any delays. With this new mandate providing the philosophical shift, NASA has also laid out a very concrete $20 billion roadmap to achieve its goal. The strategy is quite methodical, broken down into 3 distinct phases. The plan starts with Phase 1, which is focused on establishing reliable access and foundational infrastructure. Phase 2 then scales up operations with heavier landers and key assets like pressurized rovers from JAXA. And finally, Phase 3 is all about achieving a permanent, continuous human presence supported by a massive logistics train and on-site resource utilization. Now, the goal for Phase 1 is ambitious. Over 25 launches are planned to deliver 4,000 kilograms of payload to the lunar surface. To put that in perspective, that's roughly the weight of 2 cars, all dedicated to building the essential infrastructure for what comes next. By Phase 3, that number grows exponentially. The plan calls for a total delivered payload of 150,000 kilograms. It's this sheer scale of delivered mass that will ultimately make a permanent, self-sustaining human outpost on the Moon technologically feasible. Of course, a plan of this magnitude requires the right tools. So let's examine the specific hardware, missions, and technological strategies that are going to underpin this new lunar ambition. The Artemis missions are being fundamentally restructured. The new goal is to create operational muscle memory through a high cadence of crewed landings. We're talking every 6 months. This begins with systems tests on Artemis 2 and 3. Leads to the first landing on Artemis 4, and then begins base assembly on Artemis 5.
A critical challenge on the Moon is power, especially when it comes to surviving the 150-hour lunar night when solar energy just isn't available. To solve this, NASA is moving nuclear power from a theoretical concept to actual hardware execution with its nuclear electric propulsion strategy, which relies on space-based fission.
The SR-1 Freedom mission will be the pathfinder for this technology. It actually serves a dual purpose. First, to catalyze a commercial market for nuclear power in space, and second, to act as a pathfinder for Mars by transiting to the Red Planet to deploy a fleet of surveillance helicopters. But before humans establish a permanent foothold, an advanced robotic vanguard will go first to survey and master the brutal terrain of the lunar South Pole. This includes propulsive moonfall drones for surveillance, the Viper rover for resource prospecting, and high-performance lunar terrain vehicles built for mobility in extreme conditions.
The ultimate goal of this entire strategy goes well beyond a single government-run base. The endgame, as it's described in the source, is to foster a commercially sustained lunar transportation ecosystem, a scenario where the moon becomes a functional and integrated extension of the American economy.
So the question remains, can this strategic pivot truly turn science fiction into a highly functioning deep space outpost? Thank you for watching. This is where we teach you AI and help you get smarter than your competition. If you like these videos, use the QR code at the beginning of this video to buy us a coffee or hire us to coach you or your employees in AI. Please subscribe to the AI for Career Success YouTube channel and like, comment, and share to help us reach a wider audience.